Welcome back, everybody. Guess this is probably episode 2 of putting the 1855 engine back together. I'm going to get pistons mounted on rods. This is from box A, which is going to end up being hole number 3. So I got an A3 on there with the old Sharpie just to keep everything coordinated. So I need to find rod number 3. Number 1, 2, 5. You know, it's only probably 4. 50-50 chance now. 2. Wait a minute. 3. No, 6. That one's a 6. There's, oh yeah, I pulled a rod out of a different engine to replace that one that had hydro lock just to be safe. So it's, but I thought I remarked it. That's a 4. Maybe this one is, no. Oh, I guess this is 3. Yes. You'll notice it says front, so that means the rod has to be facing, the part that says front needs to be facing towards the front of the engine. And the piston also says front, so that needs to be facing the front of the engine or your valves are going to smack. Nobody needs that. Well, I apparently forgot to push the record button when I got this piston installed on the rod. We'll just catch the next one. But I got the rings, and a lot of times they'll have a marking on them, and usually instructions come with them. If there's like a little dot or a triangle or something, that side faces up, or if they have a like a bevel on one side on the inner edge, which this one kind of does. That's the second ring. This one with the chrome face is the top ring. It seems to be the same top and bottom. Book doesn't mention anything about it, and there's no instructions with the pistons, so I'm guessing these are the same top and bottom. Like I say, this second one kind of, like there's ever so slight of a chamfer right there that isn't on the other side. Oh, there's a dot. We will face that up. And this one does. Oop, there's a dot. Nope, just looked like a dot. This one does not have a dot. So we just got to watch that second one, apparently. The oil ring. No signs of any markings on that. All right, so piston rings, end gap for our turbocharged 310 is 14 thousandths to 20 thousandths, both the top and the second one, and 10 to 23 on the oil. You will notice it's 10 to 20, so a slightly tighter gap they can allow on the early non-turbocharged engines, or the gas engines, 1755, and then both of those in gasoline. And the turbocharger creates a little more heat and pressure up top, and as that top ring gets hotter, it grows and the ends get closer together. So that's why you have, you know, at least 14 thousandths now, because that's going to close up some as the engine gets up to temperature. And if you overheat an engine, one of the things that happens is that ring grows enough to where the ends are touching, and then it keeps growing but has nowhere to go, and then something has to give and the ring breaks. So that's why there is a gap from the get-go. So this is pretty simple. Just squeeze it down without slicing your fingers. Maybe I should put my gloves back on. There we go. And then take your feeler gauge. I'm going to start with 14, make sure it's not too tight. Let's see, 24, 19, 17, 14. and it should fit in that gap. And it does. Little wiggle room. Let's try the 20. Oh, 19 and 20. Yeah, I can't get 20 in there. So it's at least 14 thousandths, but not 20. So it's not too wide and it's not too narrow. So it's good. It falls between those two specs. Let's try the second ring. Watch out for that washer on my fingers. It doesn't feel as strong as the top ring. Probably that chrome facing. Let's see. 20 thousandths. Oh. Try to get this all even. Boy, 20 is, it's tight. It won't quite, it starts in there, but then, so I'm sure 14 goes in. Yeah, 14 feels all right. Yeah, 20 I can just get started, but that's it. So I think we're gonna call that good too. And what do you do if it's not in spec? I guess you call your supplier and get a new set of rings, or measure your sleeve. Make sure your sleeve ain't machined to the wrong diameter or something. There we go. Now this one could have a narrower gap. Of course, it's farther from the heat. I think that was what, 10 to 23? Let me go double check. Yep, 10 to 23. Here's a 10. The maximum, if it's used, is 45 thousandths. It's kind of hard to get it in there with that other support ring in there. But it looks like it's just going in there. She's close, but it'll work. I've got my Hastings ring expander. We determined the oil ring does not have a up or down on these. But it expands the ring, tries to do it evenly. I think I'm gonna have to take the spring out of there and try to get that on first. And there's an end. There it is. Should probably be doing this over in a vise. It'd probably be a lot handier. Squeeze that baby back together. Yeah. You don't want your end gap of that lining up with the end gap of this. We'll just put them 180 degrees off. Carefully. There we go. Looks like it's seated in there good. I can see the springs through there. What happens, this bottom ring, there's always oil getting thrown up on the piston sleeve. It helps lubricate things. And anyways, this bottom ring scrapes oil off, because otherwise you're gonna get excessive oil up in here in your compression rings. That'll burn somewhat, coke up, crust up, and then the other thing it does is as it scrapes it off, you got these little holes in here, and they go right through and they squirt as it's scraping, that oil comes flying in and helps lubricate the upper end of the piston and cool it. That oil going in there, and then it drips out back out into the oil pan. So let's see, we did find a dot on this one. There it is. It's tiny. Am I recording? Yeah, I'm recording. It's right there. Be nice if they sent instructions just to verify that that is the right spot for that ring, or then at the right, I know it's the right groove. This one goes in the top, but that it isn't directional, this top one, or that the dot faces up, which it usually does. Maybe it's something that's understood nowadays. Not all of these piston and sleeve kits have the lube oil for the piston or the sleeve rings due to shortages, supply issues. So let's see carefully. Don't want to open up any more than you have to just to get it in. Now, one thing we may have noticed now that I got the ring in there, it's harder to see. This is for 1855, 1955 engine because they're turbocharged. The top ring has a steel land that's in the aluminum piston as they build it. And so that takes a little, and that's the difference between a 1755 and an 1855 piston, is that heavier duty top ring. I wonder what there's a spec for that too, how much up and down room there is for those rings. But so yeah, if you're doing the heavier, turbocharged engine, you can put these in a 1755. They're going to work fine. You just got a heavier duty top ring land. It makes them a little bit cheaper to not have that in there. So that's the big difference between them. So piston number 1 is ready to, piston rod, whatever, to install. Here's the O-rings for the sleeve. Like I said, seeing like, dear customer, due to the shortage of manufacturer, this kit's been shipped less of the lube. We apologize. Good luck with that. A couple of them do have lube, so there should be enough in there. And I've used Dawn dish soap in the past as a lube, and it's always worked good. If for some reason you don't have a ring expander, you don't want to buy one because you may be just doing your one engine, when you take your rods in to get the wrist pin bushings put in, if you take this stuff with it, I would say pretty much any machine shop out there is going to be able to install the pieces for you if you wanted to have them all mounted on the rods and everything, and the rings installed. Oh, let's see. Snap rings. They are in here. Yep, that's firmly in. Front. Put some lube in here. Front that away. Well, isn't that different? 220, there it says front. So front. hit it. There we go. All right, I'll check some piston rings. And then we'll get them installed. Well, it seemed like it was number 4 that was the tightest fit. I got my sacrificial O-rings in. So I'm gonna pull that sleeve and install it with those and see how they survive. Okay, to conserve on my official lubricant for these O-rings, I'm going to use Dawn dish soap for this time, which I've used in the past. It works just fine. Here we go. That ain't good. Well, I'm glad I ordered sacrificial O-rings. Doesn't look like it's hurt them yet. But I don't think I have a chamfer anymore to help them ease in. All right, let's try this again. That ain't good. Well, let's try another hole. Maybe this one's just that particular sleeve insert's too tight or something. Same thing. Ah, crap. Yeah, there's just no chamfer in there. Hey, no curved edge down on that. It's a sharp edge that's catching those boy, I don't know if I can file that. Don't really want to mess it up. Well, I'm glad I got the cheap O-rings to try this with, because these should push in by hand, and that is not happening. And without the O-rings, they slide in fine. So it's not an interference with the metal, it's an interference with the O-rings not wanting to squeeze down in. Maybe I'll call my machinist and see what he says. Well, from near as I can tell, I called the machine shop. He doesn't have anything that could get down in there and improve the chamfer. There's a slight chamfer on it, but there's a ledge there, and I think that's what's catching it. It doesn't feel any bigger. He didn't bore all the way through, so there was a ledge to stop the sleeve, and so there's just a little bit of original material down there. And I don't think his diameter is off. I think he did that just fine. I think they just weren't built with enough chamfer on there, and so it's catching that ledge. So I'm gonna go the body filler route, at least on this one hole, try it and see if I can get it in there before I go start doing more drastic things. I guess I'll have to dig out the service bulletin so people believe that I'm not crazy. I think the body filler trick's gonna work. I guess I should have filmed, I drove one in where I got one in. Did tap it on a little bit with a rubber mallet. But there's no signs of any rubber pieces. I kind of missed a spot over there. Could have filled it a little better, but might try the other body filler. It flows a little better. Could use JB Weld. It's a lot more permanent, harder to sand down. Got this sleeve in. I only had the one O-ring on it. From what I can see, there's no damage to the O-ring. So I think that's going to work. No scuffing on that, and no scuffing on no rubber bits inside the block. I think I get that filled just a little bit better and sand it out, and I think they'll go down in. So that's good. It's just that little lip over there where the new sleeve meets the old block. There's a square edge on the top of the small part of the chamfer. It's really keeping that from wanting to go down in there good, but at least I have a solution. I'm going to mix up some more body filler, hopefully get it in this syringe where I can more controllably apply it to that area. Took quite a bit of sanding to get it all cleaned up in that one because of over application. Well, it ain't the prettiest thing ever, and some of you probably think I'm downright crazy, and you might be right. But that stuff needs to cure out, and then I can sand it down and get it cleaned up, and hopefully have something I can work with. All I need is them O-rings to slip on down in. Well, I've got this just about wrapped up. I got the filler in there, probably more than I needed to start with, but I grind away the majority of the excess with this and then go in and do the rest by hand so I don't damage things. Just got the bottom of these two holes to finish up, and then I'll try fitting some sleeves in there, or a sleeve with the disposable O-rings, the sacrificial O-rings, whatever you want to call them, and make sure things go together. But I think this is going to work. It's looking pretty good. Oh, let's see. I got some. Can you? Anyways, take my word for it, because there's not a lot of room to stick a camera down in there. And control the drill. I think I have them all where they should go in good. So once again, time to clean the block, get all that dust and sanding and whatnot out of there. Let's see, I only got one O-ring on it, but let's see how this one goes in. Got a mark on it so I can tell which way it was facing in case there's O-ring damage. Boy. Still going in tight enough, but it's going in. It should go in easier than that. That's just a rubber mallet I'm using. Now that should be far enough in where that bottom ring's fully in, but. All right, let's take that one back out and see how that O-ring looks. It's not giving me a lot of confidence with the amount of drag. Maybe there's some more sanding that needs to be done in there. I guess it's coming. I kind of wipe my mark off. This is the back. Well, I am seeing zero signs of damage to the O-ring. It looks good. Am I going all the way around yet? There, now I have. Yeah, it looks fine. Don't know why it's driving in so hard other than might be a little tight. This is actually, this is B, which should be number 5. This is actually a sleeve for number 5, but it should fit in either hole. I'll get the sleeve for this one that has no O-rings on it. Drops right in. So I think we're looking at O-ring pressure. Let's see how it goes in this one. Take this back out. Lube it up. I don't know if their lube is a little slicker than Dawn dish soap, but boy, it's always worked good for me in the past. It doesn't deteriorate the O-rings. Now let's see how this one goes. Might be having to get the bore gauge out. Well, I guess it got started because now it doesn't want to pull back out. There it goes. Once it got going, it went all right. I think them lower sleeves might be a little on the tight side. But I guess if they ain't damaging the O-rings, then they're okay. Well, once again, no apparent damage to the O-ring. This thing's been in and out a couple times now, and it still looks good. So I'm gonna get the bore gauge out and check those lower sleeve lands, and maybe they're just a little oversized. So here's where we're at this point. One sleeve in with O-ring on it, and as you've seen, I did the filler and stuff. I ordered an extra one of these lower sleeve rings just in case one broke, because they are spun cast, so probably kind of brittle. And as you can see, they barely fit through the hole. Got to squeeze them ever so slightly to get them down in there. So he did have a chamfer on the top of it, but then there is also a slight lip there so that the tool has something to engage when it's down in there to drive it down in. So, and I got these sleeves from Hub City Machine Works in Aberdeen, South Dakota. If you Google that name, they'll be the first thing to come up. So, concerned about just the way, so seeing that upper lip had me a little concerned. So I bought a few, these are the O-rings that the book calls for. The 942 253 is what it subs to. These O-rings were used on up for like 88s and stuff. That bottom bore is the same. So I got a set of these as a sacrificial set. Here's the ones that came with the sleeves. In case you're wondering, red goes on bottom, black goes on top, and that is from Arrow. Thank you, Adam Seuss, for finding that information for me. Adam's been a big help with this 310 project. We've been going back and forth on stuff. But back to the O-rings. So I put one of these on just to see how well it's going to go in. Well, actually I put two on one sleeve. Just felt like it was too much pressure. So I used some filler to fill in that upper ledge there so it doesn't have anything to catch on. It's going to guide it in. Get that all done. It's still taking a bit of pressure. I can push them in by hand, but it's taking some oomph, as you saw. And so then I measured the bottom bore, got the bore gauge out. That seems to be in spec. And then I decided to measure the O-rings. And these are 6/1000ths thinner than these, even though this is what the book calls for. So I'm thinking that 6/1000ths is going to make a difference on how easy they slide in. This sleeve here has been in and out, as we've seen already, that been in and out a few times. O-ring still looks undamaged, so I think they're going to go in. It's just should be a little bit less pressure with the O-rings that came with the sleeves, but I think everything's going to be all right. And I guess the proof will be in the pudding when I get it done. So I'm gonna, now that I've explained all this, clean things off one more time. This sleeve doesn't have any O-rings on it, so it's gonna come out easy. This one does, so I gotta tap that one out with a block of wood. Then clean up any little wood bits that might fall off in the bottom part of the block. And get it ready, and then I can start. I guess we'll find out how well these Arrow O-rings make them slide in. And then I have the Arrow lubricant that came with it, and should hopefully have enough. So this is that O-ring from that sleeve. This is the 9 whatever part number, not the ones that came with the sleeves. That's a little bit thicker than the ones that came with the sleeves. And I am not finding any damage to it, despite it being in and out of a couple different holes a couple different times. It held up really good. So I think we're going to be all right with the other ones. I just wanted to be sure. Dad always stressed to me about keeping those bottom bores cleaned up good, because something gets scuffs up that O-ring just a little bit, knocks a little off from it. Next thing you know, you're gonna have coolant in the oil pan. Pretty sure that's what happened with my 1955 when I bought it. I was told about 1,000 hours on an overhaul. I drained the coolant system, flushed that, put fresh coolant in, and then all of a sudden I'm getting coolant in the oil pan. So I tear the engine down and cylinder number 2, pull the oil pan off. I could see where it's dripping around that, and pull the sleeve out, and sure enough, there's spots in the O-ring that are scuffed up from probably most likely an improper installation or not the best job of installation. And I didn't have to re-sleeve that block as far as the lower bore or anything. Cleaned it up good, and I ended up pretty much going through the motor because it still had the old rod bolts and the 2-piece wrist pin bushings. I would say those were even the original ones. Fortunately, they were in good shape, but they had some wear to them, and so it was just as well that it was leaking. And so I did all the updates to that engine and ended up doing just about a complete overhaul. I did reuse the pistons and sleeves because they were the quality ones, and didn't have that many hours on them and seemed to be in good shape. So, but that's a different tractor, not this one. But just an example of what scuffing up some O-rings can lead you to. In this case, it might have saved me a rod through the side of a block. I'm going to get the O-rings on the sleeves. I've got the block sitting right under the radiant heater to warm it right up so things are hopefully expanded a little more and make for easier sliding for those O-rings. Thank you, Adam, for getting me this. We'll zoom. I think he said page 79 is where it tells 74, 6, 78, 79. Tiny print. Okay, yep, there it is. The top groove contains a black ring and the bottom groove contains a red ring. I'm not sure how good that's going to come out, but red groove ring on the bottom groove, which these are upside down, so it's going to be top. Give it one more good wipe. Make sure there's not anything in those grooves. And get her in there. And then what I like to do is just go around, and that way if the O-ring is twisted any, going around a couple times with the O-ring pick just kind of helps it untwist. Yeah, that doesn't project quite as much as those other ones. This one has a little bottle of their lube with it. Oh, hey, does it even say on it? But even here, it doesn't say which one on top and which one on bottom. Isn't that nice of them? I personally just lubricate the outside. That's the part that's going to be sliding. The inside of the O-ring, I've never done it in the past and it's always turned out fine. This is saying lube the O-rings first, but I figure they don't need to be sliding in the grooves. They want to stay there. But we don't need that quite yet. I don't need it drying out or whatever, so. If these were dry sleeves, I'd be putting them in the freezer. But being a wet sleeve, I don't do that because I'm too worried about the O-rings getting cold and losing their flexibility. So I do these at room temperature. I don't know if anybody out there watching, have you put these kind in the freezer to help shrink them down a little bit more? Say something in the comments, because like I say, I'm just concerned about the O-rings losing their elasticity. Dear customer, due to a shortage at the manufacturer, this kit has been shipped less the lube one. We apologize for this inconvenience. I think there's enough in the other bottles, but a lot of you might be wondering, what the heck do I do if I don't have that? And I've used Dawn dish soap for years. No troubles. You gotta be careful what you use because some stuff will react with the rubber or the silicone. I think that's what the red one is. Okay, since it's basically about lunchtime, I'm gonna roll this a little farther away from the heat. Let the block sit under the heat so it's warmed up good. Get some lunch, come back, and in the magic of editing, it'll be just like that. And we'll start putting sleeves in. I've got 3 tubes, so half of them had the lube in it. I'm thinking that's gonna be good. We'll find out soon enough. Always use the dish soap if not. A lot of guys talk about John Deere has a lube, O-ring lube, so that's something you could go to your local John Deere dealer. Not that I normally endorse that, but it is a source. Time to get this show on the road and put those sleeves in there forever home. We'll start with number 6. Well, once I open up the bag, it is Parker Super O-Lube for O-ring lubrication, silicone based. So if you're looking for some of what Aero sends, ooh, there ain't a boatload in here. There might be none in there. I think the tube is kind of cracked. Oh yeah, this baby's empty. Wow, it just gets better all the time. Well, let's see how the other ones are. Shoot, there's gonna be barely enough in this. This is the second one. There's hardly anything in this. It's a joke. 2 grams. I'm sure the tube weighs more than that. The other one had a split in the tube, so I'm guessing the lube dried up, leaked out, something. I'm getting some. It's clear. It's almost like grease. Okay, I've got the O-rings on the sleeve lubed up. See if I can get enough on here to put a film on the O-ring chamfer, whatever you want to call it. Boy, they don't send a lot. There goes my dreams of a tube being able to do 2 of them. Barely enough to do 1. Bore is clean. The underside of the flange is clean. Don't need any little bits holding it up. There's 1 and 2. That's how they should go in. Little bit of effort, but hand should do it. Well, I'm going to see if I can get online. I did like the way they slipped in with that stuff. See if I can't find some of that Parker lube online and get something. I suppose it might slow me down a day or 2, but when they don't send enough with it, what other choice do you have? Especially when they send that tube and it's got hardly anything in it. Well, I did some calling around and found a place in town that doesn't have it, but can have it by tomorrow. So this is my 3rd tube going on the 2nd hole because there's only 2 grams in it. The tube I bought is 2 ounces. There's a little over 23 ounces to a gram. So a 2-ounce bottle will definitely get the job done. Still be enough for the 1600. 2 grams is just enough to do 1. There ain't any goobers sticking out the edge or anything. Let's see how this one goes in. make sure this is B. Yes, it is. There's the first one. And there's the second one. Well, 2 holes are all I'm going to get done today. It's a bit of a bummer. Seems like there's always something trying to slow me down on this project, but it'll get done eventually. Well, it took it a couple days to arrive, but I got another tube. This is the 2-ounce tube. 2 ounces, 2 grams. That's a huge difference. Here's the old, this is the one that came with it, and there was barely anything in it. This tube was like mostly tube. Who knows, maybe there's not as much in this as I think, but yep, I gotta put a hole in it too. But it should be more than plenty to get this done. The next engine, a few engines, according to my math, if 1 or 2 grams is enough per cylinder. So let's finish getting sleeves in there. That is D. Everything looks good. There's 1. And 2. Block's a little cold this morning. Got it under the heat, but all right, next one. Goes pretty quick when everything goes the way it's supposed to. 24 bucks for that, so don't want to be too generous. Doesn't take much anyways. Having that block good and warm definitely made a difference. They're squeezing a little bit tighter this morning, but nothing that concerns me, I guess. There we go. Sleeves are installed. Now I just need to put the rest of the bolts and washers in. They're not going to just fall out with the O-rings in there, but once I start putting pistons in and things start moving, the pistons and rings could make them move. So we want them clamped down. Want to keep them far enough away where they don't overlap so you can get the pistons down in later. You can always loosen them up. Don't have to put just a little pressure on them. Just want to keep them in. Don't want to distort anything or leave a mark from the washer and the sleeve. That part is done. Sleeves are installed. Okay, now you can see what I'll show you what I was doing while I was waiting for my sleeve goo to come in. I wanted to use the same stuff that Arrow had sent with it, so I waited so I could get the Parker lubricant. Because if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. As you can see, the crank is in. 2 mains, and well, you'll just have to watch the next part to see why it's not getting any farther than this at the moment. It'll, so you can speculate in the comments. I don't know if that'll gain you anything, but that's where she stands. That's the end of this episode. Be sure to tune in next time to see what the heck is going on down here, and more adventures. I appreciate everybody watching. We will see you in the next one.